Now, today we are going to start with the derivations part. I told you several derivations are there in this particular chapter. So first and foremost derivation, it is coming in terms of voltage gradient on the conductors. The first type of very simple charge configuration that is being considered is in the form of a field of a point charge. Okay, field of a point charge. So this particular topic, voltage gradient, this chapter, it requires a bit of your basic understanding as far as the electromagnetic fields are concerned, isn't it? And of course, it's not very difficult as we go through the definitions of Coulomb's law and use it to find out the electric field. So those things you have studied at a second-year level. So we'll go through this exercise and then also solve some problem today as well, right? So kindly focus your attention onto a particular diagram at the bottom, wherein it indicates that there is a source charge having charge equal to Q, capital Q coulombs, right? And its location is indicated as S1. And then there is a test charge, maybe a small q, located at some distance, small r. Okay, so there are two charges, capital Q and small q, and as these charges are present in a particular medium or free space, as per the Coulomb's law, they will experience a mutual force, right? If the charges are like polarity, then they will experience a repulsive force. If there are opposite polarity, they will feel the attractive force. And then this particular arc, it shows that the intensity of electric, this Coulomb's force will be uniform over this particular surface. It's a spherical surface having radius r. So this is the diagram configuration that is visible. We describe all the various parameters here. Consider a source point S1 where point charge of capital Q coulombs is located. A second point of charge small q coulomb is located at S2, which is at a distance of r meters from S1. So how to express the force? The force as given by the Coulomb's law can be written here as F is equal to Q into Q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r square, right? So force is directly proportional to the product of charges, inversely proportional to square of distance, and unit is in newtons. Here, the purpose of expressing Coulomb's law for this charge configuration is to arrive at the electric field. So electric field is basically derived. It's a Coulomb's force experienced by a standard unit positive test charge. Okay. So let us now check with the. You just have to take note what is the diagram. So the diagram is very simple. Two charges separated by some distance, small r. Okay. Let us move to the next slide. Okay. So we derive one by one the various aspects related to point charges. This will just give you a kind of starting point, just to enhance your understanding how electric field you have calculated earlier as far as the point charges are concerned. And in high voltage engineering, sphere gaps, this experiment that you have seen, their point charge in the form of spheres, it is used for the purpose of testing of insulators or calibration of voltmeter. So even in the government sponsored labs, high voltage labs, you'll find this kind of arrangement, spherical arrangement. And this is a case of a point charge. Charges located at the center of the sphere, and it is used for the purpose of testing. That's why we want to study point charge here. Electric field can be expressed, electric field can be expressed in terms of force per unit charge, right? So the definition for electric field is that it is the limit as force tends this limit as the charge tends to 0, that's the test charge, okay, force per unit charge, okay, it is expressed. So we divide this force expression by small q, assuming small q to be unit positive test charge, right? What is realized here is that the expression for electric field gets reduced to q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 r square. This is standard expression. You might have solved several problems related to this one in the second year level at fourth semester. Unit is in newtons per coulomb. Remember that as we calculate electric field, you have to also understand why we are focusing on electric field is because electric field is basically the stress, electric stress which exists on the surface of the sphere or a conductor, and accordingly it affects the nearby objects, the insulators that we have studied in high voltage engineering to a large extent. Okay. The next next equation in series here, you can see is the electric flux density. If the electric field is present, so what is the density of the electric flux lines? So electric flux lines density can be expressed as Q upon area, okay, Q upon 4 pi r square. So that gives us this particular parameter here, okay. So this parameter epsilon 0 E. This is a definition for electric flux density. That is you must have experienced while studying. It is basically here you can see it is D, electric flux density D. D is equal to epsilon E. This is the relationship between flux density and electric field intensity. It is related by the permittivity of the medium. So flux density can be expressed as Q upon 4 pi r square. 4 pi r square is the area of the spherical surface. That's why we have drawn in the diagram spherical surface where the electric field will be uniform. So we can express D as equal to or 4 pi r square D is equal to Q coulombs. So electric flux density. Unit for electric flux density is coulombs per meter square. Electric flux density is expressed in coulombs per meter square. Intentionally, we are just expressing everything in terms of charge Q. Okay. So later stage you will realize why this is needed. Okay. Next is so if you remember, while studying the electromagnetic fields, all these equations you come across, and each equation you solve several problems. So coming from electric field to flux density and then to the electric potential, these are almost like 3 units that you study in EMF. Starting from first unit, vector treatment, then second unit for Coulomb's law, and then third unit you come across electric potential. But then at that stage, these basic equations, when we come across for the first time, they look quite complex, but they have profound practical importance. Okay. So check that once you derive electric flux density, so electric potential, potential is represented by various symbols. So psi is one of the symbol that is used. And if you remember, definition for electric potential is work done in moving from infinity up to a point will give you electric potential at that point. Okay. So work done. So what is happening is that you are trying to move a standard test charge under the electric field, right, over a distance. So that distance is integrated from infinity to point r. So minus of EDL integration from initial point to final point. This also equation you have studied in the EMF. Okay. So psi equal to infinity to r minus EDR, because you are moving against the electric field intensity. The test charge is moving against the electric field. That's why this has got a negative sign. Work is done against the electric field, so minus sign. And Q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r. We substitute the expression for E right from here. Okay. So in this case, all other parameters they are constant. Charge is constant. Source charge 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r. These are constant depending on the permittivity of the medium. So what remains is the integration of this minus 1 by r square. It's very easy. It will be equal to 1 by r. So potential expression is this. Also you have derived earlier, but now you are realizing how we can use it for the study of electric stress in extra high voltage AC lines and points. Okay. So expression for this electric potential is obtained like this. Fine. Expression for magnetic flux, this electric flux density. Okay, it is the Q upon 4 pi r square, and of course electric field intensity that we have mentioned earlier, right? So let us now move ahead and check with the expression related to capacitance and potential difference for the point charge. Okay, so this is the next slide. If I want to find out potential difference between 2 points which are located at distance small r1 and r2 from the source, that is a charge q, then the expression for the potential difference between point 1 and point 2 can be obtained here. Okay, just like this. Potential difference between point 1 and point 2. So q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r, and this first term, this will be, you can consider this to be V1, and q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r. So upon 1 upon r2, this will be V2. So V12 is equal to V1 minus V2, potential difference. This is the absolute potential at point R1, and similarly, this with this term multiplied by 1 by R2, this is absolute potential at point R2. So difference between R1 and R2 is basically V1 minus V2. This is a very simple equation. Let us now check with the next. Capacitance of an isolated sphere having charge Q, okay, and potential is equal to psi. So Q is equal to Q upon psi. So this can be expressed in terms of Q upon 4 pi epsilon 0 r square, and of course of isolated sphere. So when you substitute this potential, not the potential difference, this potential, you will be able to get this as 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r farads. So capacitance. This way we are able to evaluate the electric field due to a point charge, a simple point charge. Okay. Now there may be a question in our mind as to how come like these equations, where is the practical relevance? These equations you have seen already in the EMF in the second year level, and now you are also again rechecking them with maybe some different names, right? But this is required because we have to revise it, and once you revise, naturally the immediate application that comes to our mind, as I said, is related to the sphere gap, the field of a sphere gap. Okay, so that was one of the derivation. Rather, it's a sort of a revision you studied at second year level, and again you placed it here. Field of a point charge. Expression for the Coulomb's force, expression for the electric field, then expression for the flux density, then potential difference, and then lastly capacitance. The application of that particular set of equations is in the form of yet another derivation related to the field of sphere gap. Sphere gap is very, very important as far as the measurement and calibration of high voltage equipments and measuring instruments is concerned. So that's why we would like to go into the further details how the sphere gap works. We have used this as an application for the measurement purpose in the high voltage engineering subject. Now we are looking into the electric stress part of it. How are the electric stresses distributed as far as the sphere gap is concerned, and how the sphere gap is considered to be accurate in terms of measuring extra high voltages. So naturally, sphere gap is used in high voltage laboratories for the measurement of extra high voltages and for calibrating the measuring apparatus. If the gap spacing is less than the sphere radius, okay, if the gap spacing between the two spheres is less than the radius of the sphere, then the field has been observed to be well determined. That is, it is uniform and it breaks down consistently with an accuracy of plus minus 3%. So if somebody asks you what is the accuracy of a sphere gap, then you should be able to define it will be in plus minus 3%, subject to the condition that gap spacing, okay, gap spacing it is less than, fine, the sphere radius. The gap spacing is less than the sphere radius. This is the condition. So in this expression for field of sphere gap, we are going to derive the conditions that gives us equations, correlation between the sphere locations, the radius, and the point of zero potential at the sphere surface, where the one which is connected to the ground. There are two spheres. One is connected to the high voltage terminal, and the second one it is connected to the ground. Okay, so the accurate readings will be observed provided the ground connected sphere has a zero potential surface on its plane. Okay, so let us check with this particular derivation here. So consider 2-point charges Q1 and Q2. So these represent the charges on the two spheres in the sphere gap assembly located with a separation of capital D. So you can see one is the charge Q1, the other charge is Q2, two spheres. So second sphere is not shown here in order to have a simplicity in representation of the diagram. They are separated by distance D. Okay, and you can consider that this sphere we are showing here, it is a ground connected sphere where we would like to arrive at a condition that potential on the surface of the ground sphere is equal to 0. Here it is clearly marked that we want to arrive at a condition that will make ground potential surface voltage to be equal to 0 in order to have accuracy in the measurement of voltage with respect to sphere at Q1. Okay, then various dimensions are indicated. Total distance between the center of the spheres is S1. Distance of charge located within the sphere, it is not intentionally shown on the center, rather it is shown at some other point inside the sphere at distance D. Okay, and there is a location on the surface of the sphere indicated by point P. So with these dimensions, we are going to consider difference between D and S1 is equal to S2. This is indicated as S2. The difference between D and S1. Okay, so let us now move ahead and check with this setup. Okay, so first and foremost is at point P XY. Okay, with origin at charge Q1. Charge Q1 means the charge which is on the left hand side. It's a high voltage source charge. The potentials due to Q1 and Q2, they can be expressed as psi1. Charge due to Q1 at point P. Okay, point P will experience potential due to both the charges Q1 as well as Q2. So due to Q2, Q1 will this psi1 will be equal to Q upon 4 pi epsilon. So here I can see we are writing this as epsilon 0 epsilon r as epsilon combined term 1 upon r1, where this r1 can be calculated from the diagram to be equal to under root of x square plus y square. Please remember that origin has been selected as location of point Q1. So accordingly, we can calculate the distance of point P from Q1 to be R1 as equal to under root of x1 x square plus y square. Then potential at point P again due to the other charge, which we are going to search for a condition how the charge surface potential will become 0. It is Q2. So psi2 equal to Q1 upon 4 pi epsilon 1 upon R2. So these basic equations we have just now seen for the point charge. That's why I told you we need to have a revision how it is arrived at. So this is absolute potential 1 upon R1, absolute potential 1 upon R2. So what is R2? R2 again can be written from the diagram that we have shown in the previous slide. So d minus x whole square plus y square under root by using simple Pythagoras theorem. Okay. Then the total potential at point P due to both the charges, total potential. Remember, point P is not the point where source charge is located. Point P is any general point, and we want to find out total potential at point P. So there are two source charges, Q1 and Q2. So together they will apply a net potential. Potential is ultimately an electric field. Okay, so field. So this is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon. We just have to add potential at P will be equal to 1 due to Q1 and plus the potential due to Q2. So Q1 upon R1 plus Q2 upon R2, some part is common. Okay. Now we would like to arrive at the condition how the surface potential of sphere can be made zero in order to have accuracy in the measurement. So the boundary condition is, again, remember that boundary condition we have studied in the EMF subject in the unit number 4. Okay, boundary condition on the surface, if we have potential to be zero, then how will this equation will express? Okay, if Vp, that is left hand side, is equal to 0, if this will be 0, this means that these two terms, naturally this is a constant, so these two terms must be cancelling out each other, then only Vp will be 0. So what is the condition? Condition is Q2 upon Q1 is equal to minus of R2 upon R1. In other words, this must be equal to minus of this. Okay, that's why the minus sign, right? This plus this must be coming out to be 0, or Q1 upon R1 is equal to minus of Q2 upon R2. With a slight adjustment, it will become Q2 upon Q1 must be equal to minus of R2 upon R1. So that is, it indicates first essential condition is that Q1 and Q2 must have opposite charge polarity. यदि हमें surface potential को 0 बनाना है राइट हैंड साइड के स्फीयर पर, तो कंडीशन ये है कि Q1 और Q2 ये दोनों ऑपोजिट पोलैरिटी के चार्जेस रहने चाहिए. Q2 upon Q1 is equal to minus of some constant ratio of diameters, this radiuses, distances. Okay, so Q2, it must have opposite polarity to Q1. This is the first condition obtained. Okay. Let us now move ahead to the further part of the derivation. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Now from equation 1, a bit of substitution is done. We already know the dimensions of R2. Okay. What we do is that from equation 1, we take the square on either side. So R2 upon R1, R2 square upon R1 square. So that minus sign is taken care. When we take the square, Q2 square upon Q1 square. R2 square upon R1 square is equal to Q2 square upon Q1 square. Knowing the dimensions of R2, that is equal to under root of d minus x square plus y square as written earlier in the slide. So we substitute when we take square, so square root, it will get eliminated. Similarly, R1 is equal to under root of x square plus y square. So this is the equation obtained. Please observe here that in this equation, x and y, this represents the coordinates. In a two-dimensional space, they represent the coordinates. But all other parameters, like it flux, even d is a dimension, okay? D, x, y, okay? Q2, Q1, and R2, R1, right? These are the charges, these are the distances. So most of the parameters here, these are the distances, but these two, that is x and y, these are the coordinates. They may vary. As we move point P from one place to another, D will remain fixed. But as x and y vary, R1, R2 will also vary. Charges will remain fixed. Okay. So what is done is that we try to adjust this equation in such a manner that we get a standard form in terms of x, y. So the equation is expressed as x minus d upon 1 minus q2 upon q1 whole square, okay, plus y square is equal to d square q2 by q1 whole square upon within bracket, this term is 1 minus q2 upon q1 square, then whole square, right? If you observe carefully this particular equation, this second equation, then the parameters are arranged here in such a manner that you are observing this. This is basically a equation of a circle in two-dimensional space, or you can consider this to be a sphere in three-dimensional space. It has got a positive value. Denominator should be positive, then only R will be a condition. Next condition that is obtained here is that Q2 should be less than Q1 for a positive value. And where is the center? The center of the zero potential surface, okay, it is located at point S1 comma 0. You can see x minus a square plus y minus b. So there is no term here with the y. So that's why this will be 0. So center of the sphere or center of the circle where we want to find out zero potential surface, it will be located at this x minus s1 square plus y minus 0 square is equal to r square. So center is s1 comma 0. We are defining s1. So this s1 will be this particular term. S1 will be this particular term. Okay. So three conditions are already obtained. One was in the earlier slide that Q2 and Q1 must be of opposite polarity. Second, in order to have zero potential, Q2 should be less than Q1. And thirdly, the center of the zero potential surface from this equation should lie at S1 comma 0, center of the zero potential surface. Okay. That means there should be a sphere within which this particular point Q2 is lying. That center should be a zero potential surface will have a center at S1 0. Okay. So let us now move ahead further and realize. Okay. So please note that S1, as I told you, this is the term x minus a square. So d upon 1 minus q2 by q1 square. This is the value of S1. This is the location, okay, x coordinate of center of zero potential surface. Okay. And if we try to simplify this by substituting in terms of d, it will be coming out to be q1 upon q2 times of r. Or r we have already expressed. R depends upon d, q1 and q2. So we can express this as equal to q1 by q2 times of r. A bit of simplification is required. So that part, of course, you can just use pen and notebook and try to substitute the r in terms of this equation and solve for S1. So check whether you get this as q1 upon q2 times of r. Okay. And once S1 is obtained, then from the original diagram, we know that S2 is difference of S1 and D. Substituting S1 here in this equation and solving for S2 in terms of R, you get this as Q2 upon Q1 times of R. So the equations which look to be quite complex here, they get simplified because we have defined the radius of a zero potential surface R. Okay. So in terms of R, S1 is equal to Q1 upon Q2 times of R and S2 is equal to Q2 upon Q1 times of R. This will take us to the relationship between the magnitudes of Q1 and Q2. We can express Q2 is equal to Q1 S2 upon R from these two equations. If we try to simplify, okay, and substitute, you'll be able to obtain Q1, Q2 in terms of either S2 and R or in terms of S1 and R. Okay, so Q2 is equal to Q1 S2 upon R or is equal to Q1 R upon S1. Either way, because these two simple equations are there and we want to relate S1 and S2. Okay. And lastly, what we get here is that this particular equation, it will get reduced and we obtain this particular thing that product of S1 and S2 will be equal to R square of the radius of zero potential spherical surface. So this is the basic derivation related to the sphere field of a sphere gap, and it gives us three conditions. Polarity of Q1 and Q2 should be opposite. Secondly, it gives us the radius expression. Similarly, it gives us the location of center of zero potential surface and correlation between the various dimensions in terms of that radius. S1, S2 is equal to R square. We will just summarize these points, what we would like to say here, right? So that summary is visible here as the last 5 minutes are still remaining. We would like to just conclude upon that. Okay. So focus your attention here. Given a positive charge Q1 and a sphere of radius R with Q1 located external to the sphere whose center is at a distance of S1, everything is visible in the diagram. Okay. From Q2, then the sphere can be made to have zero potential on its surface. So this is very important. We are trying to achieve this. Sphere can be made to have zero potential surface. Okay. So what are the conditions? If charge of opposite polarity, charges are of opposite polarity and magnitude Q2 is equal to Q1 R upon S1. This is the first condition. And second condition is that distance S2 is related to S1 in terms of R square by S1 from the center of the given sphere towards point Q. It's along the line that joins the sphere, the other sphere, that is towards point Q1. So these two conditions are to be satisfied, and this helps us understand how the sphere gap electric stresses, they are related to the dimensions, they are sensitive to the dimension, their accuracy is dependent upon the dimensions of the spheres and similarly the orientation and charges on the sphere.